Okay, I have a little microphone thing that you can barely see on my black t-shirt. That was not intentional, but it's convenient for me. As you can tell by my surroundings, I am not at home right now. This is not my beautiful house. I've been traveling. I'm currently in a really beautiful house, and it's a gorgeous day outside, so people are wandering around outside and chit-chatting, and I apologize if any of that picks up. A moment ago, somebody's dog was going crazy, so I'm hoping that they have that under control now. Anyway, so today I'm going to be talking about modernity, more specifically about the period between 1900 and 1945. Throughout the course of my studies so far, my overall understanding for what defines modernity really hasn't changed a lot. The tapestry of modernity is complex, with tendrils weaving back into the Middle Ages, gathering wefts until an image can be formed. Advancements in technology, the social and hard sciences, economic systems, and social systems are all woven into a discernible illustration of modernity around the period of the Industrial Revolution, wherein the present-day contemporary can easily discern the foundations of life in the 21st century. I'm going to be exploring that concept of modernity in today's video, beginning with a brief description of some of the amazing developments between 1900 and 1945, followed by an observation of how the Great War led to totalitarianism and how this era, while sometimes referred to as anti-modern, is not anti-modern at all when viewed with a larger scope. I can't believe I forgot to say hey, hello, hi, but hey, hello, hi. If you like this kind of content, please consider subscribing and maybe liking this video. Okay, back to the video. Dude, I don't know what's going on with me today, but if you're ready, buckle in. In the decades leading up to the turn of the century, the world saw the inventions of the textile mill, the steel plow, the telegraph, and the iron rail for the recently improved railways, drastically increased medical laboratory research, the advent of the light bulb, the discovery and utilization of X-rays in medicine, the first fully synthetic fabric material, and the invention of the automobile all marked the accomplishments of the years leading up to and immediately preceding 1900. The bra revolutionized women's dress in 1913. The ballpoint pen made written correspondence way more efficient in the 1930s. And the radar led to a series of inventions that enable us to utilize much of our technology today, both militarily and as ordinary citizens. The Great War and World War II led to advancements in textile technology in the face of scarcity. Nylon was repurposed for parachutes. Rayon briefly overtook cotton as cotton shortages touched the entire world. Other inventions from this era include silly putty, the wonder toy of the 20th century, which was accidentally invented as a result of an attempt to synthesize rubber, and the slinky was born from an invention intended to keep sensitive equipment on ships steady on the roiling sea. How fun is that? Social sciences became institutionally accredited and popularized with the works of Charles Darwin and Nietzsche, and psychology as a field of study was accepted by the late 1800s. The establishment of centralized banks and complex lending and investment systems in many European countries during the Industrial Revolution allowed for a growing new middle class, upheaving the previous establishment of social order across the continent, and the overwhelming desire to expand both in market and in land claim led to the age of new imperialism, bringing with it the political drama played out in the most violent and vicious way. 2 wars. One that was declared to be the war to end all wars, and its bloody sequel, World War II. Modernity had decidedly been reached by the years between 1900 and 1945 based on the accepted definition of what makes up modernity as a concept. Following the devastation of the Great War, many Europeans felt lost and broken, and nowhere was this feeling of hopelessness stronger than in Germany. Born from a desperate desire for order, hope, and rebirth came a political governance system, totalitarianism. Totalitarianism is a historic concept that is unfortunately and uncomfortably close to the current era in which this video is being recorded. The introduction and establishment of totalitarian regimes straddles the line between a sign of modernity itself and a sign of a continuation of a historic precedent. The continuity thesis, which when boiled down to its simplest form, is the hypothesis that there was a continual intellectual development between the Middle Ages and the early modern era. The implication of the continuity thesis is that social, intellectual, and political developments are the result of the actions of the predecessor or preceding institutions, and that revolutions are instead a revival and an action of refinement. This is an attractive thesis, as the actions of the present can be explained as a consequence of the past. Totalitarianism, then, is sometimes referred to as the result of counter- and post-Enlightenment ideas, a simultaneous challenge and refinement of the idea of utopia, a favorite langue de pensée of the philosophes of the Enlightenment.
You know I don't speak Spanish.
I know my French is bad, please don't. Totalitarianism, as observed in Nazi Germany and in Soviet Russia under Stalin, both utilize and twist the ideal of utopianism. Utopianism, how the Enlightenment allowed for reductionism on a larger scale, can only be achieved through iron-fisted governance. By consolidating power to a single individual, the totalitarian leader could ensure his vision of greatness could be achieved without the challenge of opposition, eradicating the naysayers, frequently in a permanent, bloody way, and policing even the thoughts, belief systems, and everyday actions of its citizens in the privacy of their own homes was the method of choice for both of these infamous men. Latching onto the discontent and disorganization of their home countries, both men crafted the perfect storm to enable their rise to power. And while both enacted various policies that can be called stifling, both men used their power to force technological advancements and economic overhaul. Stalin's bloody consolidation of agriculture was horrific.
Ooh, that's bad.
But it was driven from a desire for food security.
That's good.
Hitler gathered the greatest minds of Germany and put them to task at developing some of the most destructive technology ever created.
That's bad.
And despite the terror rained upon his citizens and enemies alike, it would be reductionist to discount the medical developments during the period under his rule. We're not going to get into how they were developed or why. We're just going to acknowledge that they were developed, okay?
Can I go now?
As awful as it is, their totalitarian regimes contributed to the continuation of modernity through the increased complexity introduced in technology, medicine, and even economic schemes. The 30 Years' War between 1914 and 1945 is based on the theory that the events of the Great War led naturally into World War II. This theory assumes the establishment and subsequent growth of the Nazi regime was reactionary and defensive, a result of the Treaty of Versailles cutting Germany off at the knees. Tensions between the powers of the world were exacerbated by the rise of the new ideologies of fascism, communism, and Nazism after the culmination of the Great War. But was this period a result of modernity in Europe or merely a contributor? Again, we are forced to face the definition of what modernity truly means. It's undeniable that these new ideologies invited a new level of complexity to European society as a whole. These were not limited to just Germany or Soviet Russia. A level of xenophobia and anti-Semitism was present in nearly all European countries, and these ideals were attractive to those members who feared their way of life was or would be threatened.
He poisoned our water supply, burned our crops, and delivered a plague unto our houses!
He did?
No, but are we just gonna wait around until he does?
World War I resulted in social restructuring at a global scale, with the powerful in some countries eclipsing those who they had previously seen as equals or even superiors. Countries that had previously enjoyed a rocket into power were knocked down just as swiftly. This alone does not imply that the 30 Years' War was a result of modernity in Europe. It was a period of revolutionary change in nearly every facet of the European citizens' understanding of life and interactions with each other. The categorization of the turn of the century through 1945 has also been classified as anti-modernity due to the cultural and social restructuring in this period. By identifying these changes as merely reactionary, as well as the presence of a push to retain the unique cultural experiences of affected nations, anti-modernity can potentially be claimed. It is present in the xenophobia that grew rampant in these years, as well as the specific cases such as the rejection of non-German fashions in Nazi Germany, which was enforced by the government through actual fashion police.
On Wednesdays, we wear pink.
And the rejection of Western ideals such as capitalism or democracy. However, these countries continue to interact on the world stage, be it through commerce or travel, and thus it's too simplistic to refer to early 20th century Europe as anti-modern as a whole. Anti-intellectualism was a tool utilized by the fascist and totalitarian regimes of the era, yet even Soviet Russia's primary motivations for their internal developments was to catch up, as it were, with the wealthy West. The rise of existentialism between the Great Wars in the arts and in the social sphere resulted in Europeans as a whole feeling lost. With increased refugee movements, severe economic depressions that were only worsened by the impending Second Great War on the horizon, and the witnessing of several atrocities on multiple levels, it's no wonder that the average citizen, both on the winning and the losing side, was shaken to their core. While the years between 1914 and 1945 were a period of social listlessness, bloody battle, and a sensation of meaningless loss, this didn't necessarily extend into the sciences or even the arts. In this era, several artistic movements were developed and popularized, each acting as a reflection of the modern mixture of existentialism and the reactive absurdism of the period. Dadaism, with this intrinsic challenge to the question, what is art? And an undercurrent of anti-war messages. Surrealism, wherein the illogical is forced to be perceived as logical. Abstract expressionism, where the mere existence of the individual is just as important, if not more important, than that of the whole piece. Obviously, this is not an exhaustive list, but it does share an undercurrent of finding and challenging beauty in a decidedly ugly world. You also see movements like these in literature, such as dystopianism, which is a direct challenge to the claims of the aggressors that their motivations were to establish a utopian society. Technology continued to advance at a rapid pace, as was discussed earlier in this video, and despite the roiling undercurrent of unrest and the introduction of the horrors of totalitarianism into the mix, Europeans marched on, continuing to develop, grow, and change. Modernity, by definition, is complex. Advancements in technology, the social and hard sciences, economic systems, and social systems are all interwoven to produce modernity. 1900 to 1945 produced wonders, horrors, and unfathomable changes for all of Europe. The Great War has been tied inextricably to the rise of totalitarianism, and while this era is sometimes described as anti-modern, it simply isn't. It's an era of change, of restructuring, of advancement and retreat, but it is decidedly modern. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I had some technical difficulties, so I apologize if the quality isn't quite what you're used to seeing. Obviously, I'm in an unfamiliar environment. But yeah, had fun with this one. I hope you guys did too. Please leave comments or questions or suggestions in the comments. And if you got so this far into the video, maybe leave a emoji of a cat. I don't know. Anyway, I will see you all in the next one.